Hi, Doug Gallivan, People's Party of Canada, Yellowhead Riding, here again. I'm recording this just after we found out that 6 of the 12 challenges to the TMX pipeline have been approved to go forward from the Supreme Court of Canada. So we're not exactly sure at this point what that's going to mean for delays or the project in general, but as I find that out, I will message that out. Today, what I really wanted to talk to you about was our immigration policy and some of the misperceptions that have happened around this. The notion that someone put billboards up to do with mass immigration, and everybody challenging that notion, and that these were in some ways disrespectful. I challenge that notion, but just so people understand. The Yellowhead Riding is approximately 110,000 people, and the current immigration levels, as they are now, not what's being proposed by the Liberal governments, but as they are right now, and seems to be supported by the CPC as well. They have not come out with what their idea is, but they don't seem to be challenging this. That's the equivalent of the Yellowhead Riding's total population every 4 months. Now, if that was all economic immigration and it was spread throughout the entire country, we may not be seeing so many challenges to this. But the reality is 80% of those people are either settling in Vancouver, greater area, or Toronto, and maybe, obviously some of the other major centers taking up the bulk of the rest. And yes, of course, there's some that we have in our own small communities throughout the Yellowhead. And now the difference between what's happening in the Yellowhead and people go, well, why is that a problem? It's not a problem in the Yellowhead. The people that come out to our communities, they quickly blend into the community in the most wonderful ways. They tend to be economic immigrants. They move into all sorts of our service clubs and our communities very nicely. That's not the problem. But when you're talking about the equivalent of 3 Yellowheads a year heading into the major centers, that changes the political structure. Cities tending to be far more left-wing. They're removed from the resource industries that are dominate the rural parts of the country. So they're politically at odds in some ways with the rural and urban divide, and that exasperates it. So our proposal is to get that number down between 100 and 150,000, which is still the equivalent of the entire Yellowhead annually. And so that helps with obviously Canada's population replacement, and because we're not having enough babies. But someone should be asking why that's the problem. Why is that the case? So I just want to kind of push aside some of these notions, because it's so easy to for them to throw out comments that are inaccurate and don't reflect the reality that we live in Canada. So anyway, I think our policy on immigration is very reasonable, and of course, stopping the illegals from crossing the border without vetting. It seems absolutely ludicrous that you wouldn't vet. And some notion that there can be no ideologies that come into the country is also silly on its face. And I put it to people because there seems to be this white nationalist kind of taint to everything they talk about. But I'll put this to people: what if it was people out of the southern states that are Ku Klux Klan members that are being charged, and they were showing up at our border? Would you ask the questions then? But is it not okay to ask the questions of all people crossing as to what some of their ideologies are before they come into our country? So I just put that out as a challenge for people to think about as we move forward in these discussions. Again, looking for grown-up discussions on these matters. Thank you very much.